No, I think we have to communicate it in multiple ways. First of all, you have to communicate it by a life that is properly lived. The best way to see a counterfeit is to bring the genuine. And I'll tell you what, when a family is living properly, those whose lives have fallen apart will look at that family with a tremendous sense of admiration, if not envy, and say that's where we need to be as well. Excuse me. So I think the first thing is it needs to be lived out. The second thing is we need to find ways of communicating it without being preachy. If you come down as a 1, 2, 3, anybody knows as a parent, sounds very good, but they walk out of there saying, boy, I'm glad that one's over with. You have to make it incidental to what they are already doing. I think the best history lesson in the Bible is in Luke 24, Jesus talking to the disciples on the Emmaus Road. And they didn't realize what they were getting. What they were really getting was an opening up of the whole context, because they looked at Jesus and said, you're the only one in Israel who doesn't know what's happened. They didn't know who he was. And basically he was the only one who did know what had happened. The others didn't. And he starts tracing the whole scriptures to them and brings them to that point. And they said, this is amazing. Let's buy this man dinner. Come on in, we'll pay for your dinner if you'll explain even the rest to us. And then on the breaking of the bread, how their eyes were opened. I think literature, drama, story, music, illustration, all of these play a point. For preaching, there has to be a 3-tiered delivery. Argument, story, application. If you don't have the argument, the story will have limited strength. If you do have the argument but not the story, it'll be very dry. If you have the first two but never teach them how to apply it, it all becomes just a great thing to have gone into for some time, but it made no difference. Preaching is hard work. I find it very hard in every sermon, every talk to prepare, saying, what is the ideational strength? What is the existential strength? What is the takeaway strength? I have to look at every message in every open forum and answer those 3 questions. Humility and the way God does not humiliate us, but keeps us humble. And I think that's important. And recognizing our own shortfall. This, I think, is the beauty of the gospel, Cheryl. I was telling the story yesterday of a young woman whose life had fallen apart when her husband committed suicide because she had broken her vows and got into another relationship. And she lived and lived and lived with this haunting specter of his death literally on her lap. He had taken an overdose of a poison and took his life. This was in India when I was visiting, writing my book, Has Christianity Failed You? And she didn't know what to do with this. And she struggled and struggled and finally went and met a Hindu priest or a guru or someone, and he couldn't shake it off her, I guess, and then did this amazing thing. Give me your astrological chart and your birth date and all of this and your husband's, and looked at it all and said, I have come to the conclusion that in your previous life when you were a little girl, he raped you, and this was his karmic payback time that you were involved in. And this professional woman sitting across the table is looking at me, telling me this story, having bought into it. What did that tell me? It told me she desperately needed a way to alleviate her guilt and needed some authority figure to give her the legitimacy of a guilt gone. We all stumble and fall, and we don't know where to go. We cannot minimize it, and yet we cannot run from it. The cross of Jesus Christ is the central message of the gospel, where the price was very seriously paid. And when that price is understood and you respond with love and gratitude, life is very different. And even if you stumble, you don't go like this, you climb higher and higher and get closer and closer to be conformed to the image of God's Son.